Hi folks, you were taskless today. Taskless today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the extent to which Western governments are using taxpayer money, your money, to aid and abet and fund and facilitate and underwrite and bankroll the massive logistical machine that's required to move masses of illiterate peasants from the third world into the first world. Now we're told that look, mass migration is just happening. People are on it. It's happening. It's natural. It's grassroots. It's desperate people. We have to help the desperate people. And if you've got a problem with that, you are a fucking Nazi. So this, of course, is completely untrue. There's nothing grassroots, nothing natural, nothing organic, nothing natural or organic about it at all. This is a mass people movement that is funded by the globalist machine and orchestrated and propagandized by the globalist machine. So what I noticed recently, just looking at putting together a few different articles, and this should be front page news worldwide, but looking at a few different articles about the amount of money the US government directly gives to the activist, the primary, those activist NGOs at the apex of facilitating and underwriting mass people movements. And it's only a one-way people movement. It's again, the illiterate brown and black peasants, moving them from the third world into the first world. And this is the big globalist sort of shtick for things. So now it's just shy of, this is what I could find, it's just shy of $1 billion. So these are direct donations to these NGOs. Now they're not just, now the NGOs have benign names, such as the Organization for the Equality and Happiness of Children, the Organization for the Protection and Empowerment of Women, or the Organization for the Freedom of Expression, these sorts of things. So they say, well, gee, that sounds good. I mean, well, wow, for the protection and freedom of children. Okay, no, I'm for that. So that's a good cause. The American government's, but the reality, of course, is quite different. These organisations have nothing to do with protecting children or this or that or doing anything worthwhile. Their job and their sole mission is to transfer as many black and brown peasants into the first, from the third world into the first world. Now, the logistical machine to do this, of course, is massive. Not only do you need agitators and stirrers and influencers to be operating all over the third world, and given they've got a much less sophisticated communication system than the West does in terms of an internet or telephone systems, phone networks, mobile phone networks, because it's much less sophisticated. The way this is done is putting people on the ground to stir up the peasants, and the best way to do that is to get another peasant, radicalize them, and get them then to stir up other further peasants and so on. But the connection someone has is really just with their own village or segment or subsection of a tribe, because they don't have a national identity in the same way that we might in the West, or once had anyway. So the number of on-the-ground agitators and stirrers that are needed, that effectively are commission agents, that's really what you call them. Hitherto those sort of people will be employed to sell things. They'd be salesmen to sell products and so on. But not anymore. They're now employing these salesmen to sell the idea of, hey, guess what? You can go to the West and they'll give you free this, free that, free so-and-so. And we'll help you get there, and we'll make that journey. And they'll tell these illiterate peasants terrible lies, like they do in Pakistan or Bangladesh when they go to these rural peasants. They effectively make out that London, England, if you're in Pakistan, which is several thousand miles apart, they'll just say, well, actually it's only just around the next corner. But you're talking to people who've never left their village. If they've traveled anywhere, it's maybe an hour on the train in their whole life, and that's like, wow, that is a long way to go. So, and they're told that, well, no, just a couple more train stops along and you're in London, England. Wow. So they've got no concept of distance and space and time. They're illiterate fucking, rural, hand-to-mouth agrarian peasants, for goodness sakes. And these are the people that are most easily influenced with these things. But they use somebody from the village to do it. Now, that means they're employing hundreds of thousands, millions of people over the world, and they're all around the world and going all over the third world into refugee camps, temporary camps, into little tribal villages in the middle of fucking nowhere. I just can't, I can't overstate the size of the machine that's been put in place by the globalists to encourage these illiterate peasants to make the journey and to say, look, we'll help you. We'll provide the buses and the coaches, and we'll provide the food. We'll provide guess what? We'll give you nice Western clothes. We'll give you, Nike joggers. Your head of Michael Jordan. We'll give you, his shoes, and this sort of thing. So they're being promised all these clothes, and we'll feed you, and we'll give you we'll transport you. Don't worry. So we'll make sure you'll have under the table jobs in these countries, and we'll show you how to avoid paying tax. We'll show you how to avoid skirt the laws of the country. We'll show you how to lie and cheat and steal, and so it's a massive machine that's very, very, very. I mean, requires a lot of money. Vast resources have to be put not only in people but in just direct cash. Just buying all the bottled water alone comes to millions of dollars every year for these illiterate peasant migrants that are being stirred up and agitated to make the journey. How many would make the journey without the logistical support? You'd be looking at 1 or 2%. So the mass people movement of brown and black peasants to the west, which is part of the program of replacing the Western white citizens. I mean, what else could it be, for fuck's sake? That program is a very expensive program. I suppose, ironically, it's interesting that the money, the white taxpayer that pays the bulk of all the taxes in the West is having their taxes stolen because without their knowledge or consent, having their taxes stolen to fund the mass people movement that will bring about their eventual replacement of the white people. I mean, has this ever happened in human history? I mean, fuck. So anyway, the US government is handing over and again, this is only what I've found, just shy of $1 billion. Now, I did a quick bit of checking it doesn't actually take that long. Looking at the United Nations donate, now the bulk of the United Nations money comes from the US, and that money in turn is then recycled back into the pockets in terms of additional funds. So the US government is directly giving money to these NGOs that are facilitating the mass migration of peasants, including the mass migration from South America into the United States through the southern border. So a lot of these so-called illegal, people smugglers, so on, they've been directly funded. Don't think they're just purely criminal gangs, like some of them are, but they've decided they're just criminal gangs. These are being funded by the United Nations and by the NGOs. Now they may be picking up a few extra bucks on the way through, fleecing the peasants if they can get them in there. Or alternatively, what's also our favourite is a lot of these people are getting jobs in the United States and they're effectively being indentured. So the people smugglers are in effect being paid by employers in the US, to employ people under the table, so that they pay them under the table, outside of the taxation system, pay them to do this, to wash dishes or I don't know, mow the lawns or wherever, through these front labour hire organisations, which are really just an extension, in my view, of criminal gangs anyway. So when we look at then the money that's also donated to these same NGOs or the equivalent NGOs, but in a different geographic area, by the German government, French government, British government, and so on, the primary Australian government, the primary Western countries that are globalist controlled and are desperately trying to pack as many brown and black peasants into them as they possibly can, and then you look at the United Nations contributions, you look at the contributions from big multinational firms, then it's a multi-billion with a B, a multi-billion-dollar exercise. And this entire mass migration machine is superbly well funded. I mean, billions of dollars floating around. And the money that's being paid to the prime, the coordinators and the local supervisory staff and so on is quite generous and is often, again, tax free. So it's not unusual to find agitators and stirrers, ideological fanatics and so on being paid $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, some of it in kind, some of it in cash, to be the primary sort of operations managers, if you want, of this outrageous international scam. But again, it's coming out of the pocket of the white taxpayer. Now, on top of that, these NGOs are registered as charities. And so the big multinational firms are making donations, very generous donations to these NGOs, again, that are nothing but a scam front for organising illegal and cultivating and agitating illegal vast amounts of illegal immigrants to move around the world. These multinational companies are donating this money to these NGOs, and that is a tax deduction, for Christ's sakes. Whether they would do it or not, if it was not a tax deduction, I'd question, but nonetheless. So this goes to show you just the way the tentacles of the scam work. Now, without, firstly, say in Britain or America, without an open door policy for illegals to just walk in, then you would get much less migration. And you can see that with, say, during the Trump years, when there was an attempt to limit it, as much as the globalist funded machinery tried to frustrate the Trump administration and the courts in the US. But you can see how much higher the mass migration is today than what it was then. But if then you take away or take out of the equation the vast and superbly well funded, generously funded agitation machine, the logistical machinery that is going into the villages and agitating and stirring up the peasants to make the journey in the first place, and then to facilitate their movement across thousands of miles of territory, feeding them, giving them water, giving them clothes. You don't bother doing laundry, you just give them new clothes and abandon the old ones. I mean, that alone is a hugely expensive business, giving the millions of people involved. So this is something that is superbly well funded, and I don't think it would happen. I mean, how many people would make the move? I mean, again, you're looking at illiterate peasants who've never been outside of their own village ever in their lives, and they're about to make a journey for thousands of miles. They wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't. It wouldn't even come into their heads. Also, something else that I found out is that they've got quite a sophisticated underground sort of family reunion type service, these NGOs. So they can go to a village and say from years ago somebody left the village or left a village nearby or left a member of the tribe's gone to America or somewhere, and they'll find out that be able to locate that person quite quickly, much faster than the immigration authorities seem to be able to locate them, and find out and get their phone number or give them a special mobile phone just so they can talk to the people back in the village. Yeah, I got to America, and it's fantastic, and this and that. Why don't you come as well? You can stay at my house. And, these sorts of things in order to give success stories or to spread success stories in the village. Hey, Ibrahim went. Look what's happened to him. Why don't we all go? And so they're doing that as well. And you need people on the ground, a lot of people on the ground, to be able to do that sort of thing, and particularly given you've got to operate under the radar. So again, hugely expensive, but all the people are donating money. I mean, it's an exercise in astonishing deceit. Firstly, the media don't cover it, don't report. Again, this should be front page news. Corrupt NGOs in connivance with government dupe illiterate peasants into making the journey to the West. So, you can make some great stories out of this, but no one's touching it. No one's even looking at it. And so this is all being the level of deceit from the governments, our own Western governments, globalist controlled albeit, but they're directly funding this treachery and using our taxpayer dollars to do it, and no one seems to want to talk about it. It's insane, but this is where we are. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.